Okay, we have an exciting commentary today. This is a 21 hauls. That is the highest I've done on my blood TK so far. This was on Spiteful Necrotic Tormented Week. I wanted to do a review of this one, obviously because it's the highest one I did so far, but because everyone really seems to hate Necrotic Week as a blood TK, but I actually didn't mind it at all. This actually is the first time I'm comfortable doing that pull that we just did. Usually on my Brew and my Warrior, I have a really hard time gathering up that corner pack over there because of the two casters, but I think as Demon Hunter with a ranged Silence Sigil, or me with a Yoink, I think probably Pally can do it pretty easily too, since they have a ranged interrupt, but that's kind of fun. This is like the first time I've actually felt comfortable doing that sort of a pull. But yeah, you can see here, this is just what Necrotic Week ends up looking like for Blood DK. But everyone really hates this, and I understand why, because your main mitigation is healing yourself back up, and that completely goes away when your stacks get too high. But with Death and Decay, it's so easy to actually do the kite. Now, things could be going better with kicks when I'm low in here, and I do make some mistakes, but I mind this way less. I mind Necrotic as a DK way less than I mind Sanguine as a warrior. As long as I could be in control and be better to solve it, then I really just don't mind it at all. And honestly, Death and Decay is so fun to use. Look, I need to run. Bam, Death and Decay. Now I just run. Now it would be nice if people, would kick the the Wicked Bolts. They do hurt a lot, but beggars can't be choosers. And also that right there, that's why I'm always a High Mountain Tauren. Just to be able to run through mobs without worrying about if they'll actually hit you or not, or not having to have them all grouped up to do an AoE stun. But yeah, so far I think at this point we were pretty comfortable with the run. Things are going pretty well. Unfortunately for Spiteful, on this pull, everyone was kind of mesmerized by all the unit frames, so the Gargans weren't really focused down like they should have been. But we got here in 3 pulls. I've been trying to reduce the number of pulls that I do on this route. So I pull them with Death's Caress because it applies the dot to them, and yeah, it feels really smooth as blood. Every single pull, what I'm basically doing, it's a bit different actually this week than other weeks, because I usually try to sequence all of my cooldowns. So I'll start off with Storming Mist, and then I'll move on to Dancing Rune Weapon. But here I often double up on Dancing Rune Weapon with Storming Mist because it makes you unhittable basically for 10 seconds, and that's usually actually good enough to oopsie, I'm at 1000 HP. I would have been dead here if I wasn't playing Draven, and I actually probably freaked out there and lost my Bone Shield charges. But yeah, this is another good pull of an example where Draven is actually making a difference. But yeah, I double up on Rune and Storming Mists as a sort of necrotic drop almost, and it usually works pretty well actually. Not as well as a File of Serenity, but well enough that I didn't mind this week at all. Actually, I think I would rather honestly play Necrotic than Bolstering, because Bolstering is just a hard no, you can't pull big, right? And Necrotic is you can play around it, if you're good enough. This guy is the only guy I'm afraid of the 4 mini bosses as blood, just because obvious reasons. I can't heal myself when I'm fighting him. So I've taken to just making sure, I've been stingy with my cooldowns on him before. I've been stingy with Storming Mist, not using it because it's one target, but now I just make sure that I apply a DR for every one of the times that I have to actually take the damage from the bleed. Or if I can't do a DR, right now, I use Vampiric Blood, and I build it up. Sometimes I get pretty lucky. Sometimes I just parry and dodge all the bleeds, and then sometimes I take every single one. So that's kind of RNG. It's a little unfortunate. And of course, taking the AoE power I'll skip the next part. I think we do both of these at once as well. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that was on purpose. So now I'm probably going to do swarming. Yep, and then once I get my D&D down, I'll probably pop up dancing room weapon. Or I'll just panic. Okay, there you go. Yeah, but that wasn't DK's fault. That was definitely my fault. Like, even as I'm watching it, like I should have just, you know, ran sooner or used more stuff. So I'm not too mad about that. This pull was actually kind of spicy, but we do end up timing it with plenty of time to spare. So I think these kind of bigger pulls were a time save in the end, even though I ended up dying. And it's always nice to run with a warlock, obviously, just for the soulstone. So one good thing about this now, like typically over here, you know, there'd be 2 mobs that I would leave as leftovers, and I would just jump down there because I couldn't find like an efficient way to pull them. And having 3 casters in this pack over here would just like totally fuck up my brew and my warrior. I mean, it would probably hurt a lot as blood, obviously, as well, but blood doesn't care what kind of damage hits you. You'll heal just fine. But now that I can include those 2 in the first pull, it's not really a problem anymore. Yeah, so now we can like kite back up these stairs. Like that was another problem that we had. Like I'd leave those 2 mobs up there, and then people would always backpedal into them on this pull once the dogs became enraged. But we do a pretty good job of kicking the dog enrages. So it looks like I'm running here. I call it for Ursuls because my Death and Decay wasn't off of cooldown yet, but it is right now, so I'll probably just like put it back down. Yeah. And then refresh my bone shield. Yeah. So people have been recommending that I try a pally, and I am leveling a pally, and that part of what I like about DK seems like it'll carry over to pally. Like this sort of slow backpedal kiting with them in Consecrate seems like pretty similar to how you kite as a DK, and kiting as DK is really fun. I know people hate kiting, but it is actually pretty fun. Sogodon, not really much to say here. Oh, that's one cool thing is that our warlock always has this belt teleport. Actually, I guess that wasn't the belt teleport. It was just a normal teleport for warlocks. But he does have a belt teleport. I'm not sure if he still does that or not. In this run, it's me, Mithras, and Buttered Toast in comms. And then we have 2 pug members. And the pugs do pretty well as well. No complaints about them. We kill them. And here, I like to get the groundskeepers as well, just because I don't want to pull these dogs with that giant shard pack, which is coming up next, for obvious reasons. It's scary enough. I don't mind the groundskeepers at all, at least as long as my swarming and or room weapon is up. But as soon as they start hitting me, then I obviously accumulate stacks pretty quickly. But for all these melee packs, as long as I can, you know, control them with slows and snares and stuns, I have no problem playing this week. Yeah, see, I can just, like, if I wanted to, I can just keep on spamming and never get hit. Yeah, that's just like, I don't know, that part of DK is so nice to me. Just like the control you have. I think that's really the only thing that I couldn't stand about Warrior. It's like never having, you know, that on-demand control that you might want in a pinch. And being Venthyr isn't a bad thing either, because they are impossible to find. Unless you get lucky with, like, Mage and Rust Mages and looking for group. But this one will be pretty easy now, because it's just the, you know, the 3 normal dudes in the shard. I'm going to skip forward, because nothing exciting happens, really. I guess I get a little low, but that's okay. Refresh my shield, head back out to the middle. I always leave these guys. I always make sure that there's one pull in between the shard and the next boss, because I found that people would pot and then not have the pot cooldown back off cooldown yet to do the invis up the stairs. So this seems to be better for DPS rather than just like going, you know, directly from the shard kill into the Echelon kill. And Echelon is like, so he's the part where you would brick the key if you were going to brick the key. Much like the third boss on like, Necrotic Wake is like, you know, you better get that done right. So another slow, and here I'm probably thinking about going, yeah. So to get this other Stoneborn. I try to always do double Stoneborn on this first boss, and I still don't know how to pull that other Stoneborn from above. But I also don't know if you can do 3 at once as one person, I guess. But here we have 2. We'll be going into the shard, I guess Halkias. One thing that I like to do with Halkias is, at least for this first round of slams, just make sure that they're all stacked up on the same spot. They don't hurt actually that much, so don't worry really about, you know, it ticking on you. And you can see the timers here are just totally wrong. They've been wrong ever since 9.1. So he, for some reason, now he does 3 rounds of crumbling slams before he does the 3. So here I'm positioning him so that when he does his slam, it'll group up on the other slam, and now we can kind of, you know, walk around him when he's going to do the beams. It's like a point of pride for me to make sure that he's always on top of an AoE spot on the ground, just so we can, you know, not worry about. Oh, I think okay, we res him. I think he dies again immediately. Yep, there he goes. That's the kind of thing where, you know, that he's just like getting really angry. Yeah, fuck this game. So yeah, it happens, I guess. I was getting pretty scared at this point, just because, you know, it's a bad sign. Oh, I'm a noob and I let Bone Shield go off cooldown, go off of charges. So, but I went from, I must have had just enough parry remaining on my hitching weapon. I think also my druid healer pretty much just doesn't heal me at all on this fight, so he's totally free to do DPS like the entire time. Which, yeah, so he's doing like almost 3k, which is pretty good for him. You know, he's no our shaman, but it is still decent for a druid. And I'm going to skip a bit forward, because at this point, it just kind of carries on. You can imagine, you know, doing a tyrannical boss at 21 as 4 people. Things were definitely a little scary at this point, but we do still have time with plenty to spare. So this is usually the pull that I do after the shard. This seems like a decent enough pull, and the way that I think about, you know, the count here is still from the patch 9.0 days, when we would hit 80% for the Pride before Echelon. So as long as we can get to, I think it's like 79.5 or something down here, then we're set to go forward with the rest of the dungeon. Yep, get my sweet Tauren charge back in. We go a bit forward. Gotta kill the shades, obviously, before we can stealth. I'm a little bit over count here, so maybe I actually didn't need to pull one of those packs of Gargons or Groundskeepers, but sometimes I might even elect to go over count, because our Warlock has this legendary where he gets like more haste if there's 3 targets. So, you know, if ever I would have done 2, then maybe I would have just pulled them in anyway. It's not a huge deal, I guess. There were no small pulls, I'd say. With Echelon, the only thing that I think about as DK is when to use my really cool Gorfiend's Grasp. So I tried to not use it for the first one. I tried to save it for an emergency. And this probably actually would have been the best time to use it, because this was a pretty scuffed layout for these for these dudes. I get hit by this, unfortunately. And he looks like he just didn't get out of the way either. He was decursed by our Resto Druid. Some people have a really hard time with this fight. I feel like people don't know yet that you can even decurse somebody, and that you can avoid the damage if you are decursed. So it's been really, really hit or miss with this one. So this one of them will go on me, and I think I will AMS to prevent the application of the debuff, which is magic, by the way, which is very nice. Yeah. So do I do it? Do I do it? I don't do it. I guess I don't do it. I don't Gorfeed's Grasp yet. I'm being stingy with it. And I didn't even use my Storming Mist or my Bone Shield, which is... I have to get better about doing that. About just like sending the cooldowns as often as I can. Oh, I think you get hit again. But it must be the next one. This must be the one. I wouldn't ever go one entire boss without doing this. I pull him in. And do it. I do it. Oh yeah. And I probably brag about doing it in comms as well, if I had to guess. And does he move? He doesn't move. Oh, that was our guy too. I'll stole him. I think he like teleported like 1 second too low, and he doesn't have any of his sweet warlock defensives either. So you get the point. Echelon. Arkolath, pull him out. This is just another chance to use my kick macro. I have that. There's like a UI video that I have out now, and it has a link to all my macros and stuff, and that's where you can get that macro. It's kind of nice in terms of just allowing you to, you know, not type. You can hover over somebody and just say like, you know, this person next kick, this person next kick. We'll go forward here. The only new thing that I do now is do a double pull on this next pack. So as opposed to before, I would just like, you know, yoink the dogs outside and kill them. Now I make sure to get these guys too. And we use a Warlock Gate to get back. I think we did a test run before this where we fought inside the cathedral. But that ended up being terrible. So we wait for everything to group up. Blow my cooldowns. Get my Storming Mist out. Yeah, you can see like there's like 8 mobs here, but I'm up to like 6 stacks of Necrotic, right? So between Storming Mist and Rune Weapon, you can delay your first kite for a pretty long time. And even at 22 stacks, like honestly, I could have stayed there and just used Vamp Blood to increase my healing to delay a further kite. But oh yeah, so I think they get like double dogged, double gianted. These guys definitely cannot be allowed to touch me at all, otherwise I am literally dead. And now that I had to stay away for so long, my Bone Shield charges have gone away. This is sort of the reason why I want to experiment with the Insatiable Hunger legendary, because if I was using that legendary, then I would have gotten most of my damage out after my Storming Mist. It would have been like a good chunk of damage too. And I wouldn't have had so many problems with, you know, all these other guys potentially losing aggro as I just run around forever. It's not a huge deal. The unfortunate part about that is that it's damage capped. So with that pull, you know, there were 8 mobs. I would have only secured aggro on 5 of them. I don't know why it's damage capped. It's kind of sad. Because Storming Mist as an ability isn't damage capped either. And I think Bone Shield or Bone Storm is capped at 8 targets. So I don't know why it chose to cap Insatiable Hunger at 5 targets. But hopefully they look at that for 9.1.5. This is another very boring boss. One thing that's different now as a DK is that I have a range interrupt. So that's nice. I usually save my interrupt for the volley that she'll do after the Anima Fountain. So yeah, at this point, like, I usually end up having to move away from her because she'll inevitably target me. Actually, she didn't target me. That's the first time that's happened. But, you know, usually I'm running away. And I can just interrupt her and pull her over to another lantern. I try to keep her on lanterns as well, because the melee will have to, you know, run away if they get targeted, and it'd be nice to just have them, you know, always doing damage. She's a very boring boss, so I'll tab a bit through her, because nothing special ever happens with her. You can literally ignore her abilities, like even her volleys, just not kick them, and it would still not even really matter, honestly. Like, there's nothing else to heal on this fight. I'm 4k healing, right? So here I try to just get my Diseases out onto everybody. Actually, you do pretty good damage as DK in this room. Just because, you know, you don't have to worry about damage caps. So, disease them. Yeah, I'm doing like just like 15k with like pretty much disease damage at this point, so. And they should die. What I should actually be doing is applying my disease to this pack over here. But that's okay. Everyone is doing decent AoE, so I think this room goes down pretty fast. People did a pretty good job about not just tunnel visioning on the ads that have spawned already, and actually killing, you know, the ads that should be killed, which is not always the case. We'll probably drag back a little bit. Yeah. Line of sight him so he comes up here. But make sure that you don't, you know, put him back on this side of the wall in case there are still some people down here that need line of sight to keep casting. This guy doesn't do anything else noteworthy. He'll just die and spitefully spawn a Spiteful. And here we are going into the last boss. We've got 5 minutes left, so it felt like pretty good, but we've been here before. So we were expecting either the mage or the rogue to just get hit by every single one of these goddamn statues. Oh, who did we skip? We skipped the frost guy, so they are going slower. This is, to my knowledge, the only character that can avoid the stigma. You can't spell reflect the stigma as a warrior for some reason. I feel like you should be able to. But AMS does prevent the stigma's application. I guess you could also bubble taunt as a pally, or just like taunt to clear it. But yeah, I think they would be the only two that I know of. And I can't do it as a. I can't do anything about it as a brewmaster, and I don't think that Bear can do anything about it. And I honestly don't know about DH, I guess. So here, the point is to just get in close enough so that you can absorb 2 of the different beams. I just heal myself back up, and the healer has 2 beams. Just focus, you know, single target heals on himself. That makes it much easier to heal. The second stigma, I can't do anything about. I don't have my AMS up yet. That's fine. That just means that now I'm looking to see, once it gets to 8 seconds, I'm looking to pop defenses. And or my scale. So I guess I use scale there. Yeah, it's really like the last 2 or 3 ticks that you really care about. It gets like, it escalates in damage over time. As the dot ticks, the stigma dot ticks. I think nobody ends up getting hit, which is like very impressive. Like, for better or worse, that ends up being very impressive. This is the same thing. I usually try to save my AMZ for this Ritual of Woe, because I figure that, you know, people's defensives have been used, and maybe my healer's throughput cooldowns are gone on the first one, or some mistake from a statue. But with their stigma, I can't do anything about this. I assume I'll end up using a Icebound Fortitude paired with a Blood Tap, Rune Tap. I forget which one is the DR. But that'll be like a 40% DR for that. So yeah, looks like that was the case. Stigma came up, and I have AMS again, so I take half of the Sigmas that I can. At this point, we're like really happy too, because we've been here like 3 times before. Halls has always eluded us. We're getting down to like, you know, 10%, and we were like, it's still minutes left. Oh wow, that's awesome. So yeah, this was pretty exciting. This was very nice. Yeah. So I mean, I guess the takeaway for me is that I definitely don't mind Necrotic as much as other people mind Necrotic on DK. I definitely am totally okay with really anything as long as it doesn't stop me from, you know, doing my original plan. If I can snare, if I can control things, I'm totally fine with the ethics. If I can't control things, like if I can't CC or boop out of Sanguine, then I get very upset. But for whatever my temperament happens to be, this was fun. Yeah, and highest he get. So that is nice. We'll see how good it can be this week. I feel like this week is not as good, for at least for some dungeons, for big pool dungeons. So we'll see. Yep, it was fun. See ya.